Hello. It's me, you all know who I am, and I'm just gonna get right to the point. I don't think anybody knew what this game was trying to say until now. I hope the game theorist sees this. I'm giving deep thoughts into this and trying to see what this game means. This is my theory on the Joy Creation story mode. Let's get right into it. So the first thing to know is the characters. First, there's Nick, the person who's telling the story. Tobias is a side character. He's important later, but he's a side character. Then there's Scott Cawthon, the person that you're playing as in the final area. There's Scott Cawthon's wife, who really doesn't play too big of a role. Really doesn't play, too big of a role. And then finally, there's all the characters. The FNAF 1 character, the Igniteds, the Fallen, Golden Freddy, and Creation. The significance of them will be shown in what their names Ignited and Fallen mean. But we'll start by doing something kind of, average. So first of all, we're gonna state what the areas represent. The first area is the bedroom, obviously. The bedroom is supposed to be a representation of what FNAF is doing to Nick. The nostalgia of every other kid in his life, saying that he must constantly referring to him being the son of Scott Cawthon. And some people saying that his dad is stupid and kind of, some people might bully him. It's the significance. The animatronics here resemble the impact on him, in his life, on what people are saying to him. They are trying to say that they are all different emotions, but all of them usually lead to nostalgia and usually bad things. And the Shadow Freddy thing shown in the 5 a.m. of that night, which usually has them going insane, represents all the nostalgia of everyone who hates the game FNAF and bullies him through it. Trying to keep them away is a complete mental thought. If he can't keep that thought in his head, then the bullies will most likely keep throwing him in corners and stuff, or whatever they do to him, or whatever, throwing him in trash cans, doing whatever, beating him up, maybe something like that. At the age he's at in the game, we show that he's young, but this is supposed to be foreshadowing what he will go through. And that's my interpretation of the bedroom. Second night. Well, basically, it's all in the same night, but the second part of the night. The living room. The living room is supposed to be a symbolic way of showing what it did to Scott Cawthon's wife. Well, if he has a wife. I honestly don't know, in his life, but if he does, this is what it represents. All the critical nostalgia of everything. Parents saying what Scott Cawthon may have done to their kids if they don't like them playing the game, or they're completely obsessed with it. That's what the animatronics represent here. A bunch of angry parents she encounters every day, saying how that game has ruined their children and that she is related to them. Well, still, this is a theory, so it's just a theory. Finally, not finally. Next is the office. The office shows Scott running to the office. And this is a symbolic flashback to the first game. Watching cameras on monitors, as well as constantly checking doors for animatronics. Foxy seeing him shows that if you use the wrong button, like the light or something, not closing the door in time, you will die in the first game. Freddy, though, using the light just shows that he is there, and that you can shut the door in his face. Chica, it just represents Chica sticking her head by the window, unlike Bonnie, who sticks his head by the door, who is... I didn't really see him in the night. Foxy on the cameras, glitching out after he looks at the camera, resembles Foxy getting ready to run out of the cove. You see him on the camera, he'll move the less you look at him. So yeah, that's that. The symbolicness of all of it is that Scott remembering the first game. And now the last one. The last one. Wait, no. The second to last one, the basement. The basement is Scott coming to grips with the characters themselves. With the fallen animatronics being some other animatronics that I will discuss later in the video. Yeah, sorry. I just want to, separate it a little bit. So yeah. In the basement, you're constantly collecting pieces of animatronics, putting them in a fire. This is symbolically showing how Scott is trying to get rid of it, trying to end FNAF with everybody being satisfied. Also, the hallway represents how people attack him if he looks back, if he delays everything. The fallen animatronic there, if you look back, resembles just how if you stop and look back, that means you'll most likely get caught by them, and then they'll start to argue at you. This animatronic is literally representing the audience right now, yelling at him, telling him to continue everything, catching him off guard, and constantly demanding more. As Scott is trying to move forward. If you don't look back and continue forward, he makes it before they start demanding angrily in a way he doesn't enjoy. And in a way he doesn't like, in a way that makes him feel mentally unstable. After that, it's finally the attic. The attic represents all of the games coming together and the entire audience terrorizing his thoughts and making him mentally unstable. With the room actually being the FNAF, being a representation of the original game, nostalgically reminding him of how that one game caused him so much mental instability. I don't know, just causing him to go mentally unstable. He is literally facing everything. Creation being FNAF, being the physical representation of FNAF 1 itself. Trying to terrorizing him and moving slowly forward to haunt him forever. Knowing that no one will stop asking. Everyone who likes it will continue asking and forcing him to stop in his life and not move forward. Only moving forward with FNAF, which mentally gets him nowhere. But hey, there's still a theory. Now to tell what the animatronics mean. The animatronics literally represent different characters in different games or certain people in the world. As you've seen in a few areas, the animatronics can either represent bullies, or angry parents, or even other things. But let's talk about what they mean in Scott Cawthon's perspective. A lot of times they represent audience constantly asking for more and terrorizing him. They can't let the thoughts in too easily, because if that happens, then it just causes more mental issue for him, knowing that he that he sort of has to generate the demand at this point. Now, the fallen animatronics are a bit tricky, but I got it. They are the FNAF 2 animatronics. As you see, there are 4 of them, just like them. The first one, which is the angel, which is like the statue angel one, represents Freddy. Since, you don't really see him too much, and he's doing too much. Then we have the second one, which represents Withered Bonnie. As you can see with Withered Bonnie, he only has partial bit of a face, and as you can see, that's what this endo has here. The third one obviously represents Chica, with Withered Chica's big jaw gaping out, going like like it's constantly eating like pizza or something, or just like having the jaw open, locked up like that. Yeah. And then finally, the last one, Endo F Red. You can obviously tell this one's Foxy because of the fast running in the hallway. In the basement. Then Creation, as I said, represents FNAF itself, seeing that how FNAF can terrorize him so much. The joy of his creation has caused him peril. And now let's talk about the 2 possible endings. Yeah, there's 2. The first ending isn't really an ending, as it's a game over screen, but I'm interpreting it as an ending. So, in this ending, you have to look behind you going Freddy for long enough for him to kill you. As you see, there's a phone lying on the ground that says Tobias by a small puddle of blood. A lot of people, including GT Live, think that was Scott Cawthon that died, but as you see from the paper you get if you beat that night, saying man found dead in his own house after reconstruction, that is Nick, not Scott. Nick Cawthon. That is Nick, dead on the ground from committing suicide, and you will see why I say suicide later in the video. Well, like a few minutes later in the video. The second ending is the one you get from beating the knight. This shows how, they kill him. It's showing how the audience locks him succeeded in locking him in a state to where he can't move forward mentally. He has to continue. He can't end it. Michael representing the main audience saying to live forever he needs to die, as in mentally saying that to keep the franchise going we can't let him stop making them. So then after that they kill him, symbolically meaning they keep him going. They keep him locked up on FNAF until they can rest, knowing that FNAF has a final acceptable ending, although a lot of them rather not have an ending in the first place. And then Nick and them having Michael go out possibly in Scott Cawthon's skin, saying you are safe now, that's all that matters, saying that how they are safe and not mentally trapped either, saying that how they can go to them later if Scott Cawthon ever stops, going to him asking to make more, asking him or her to make more, asking him or her to keep it going. Saying to Scott Cawthon they'll take everything from here, saying how the audience will go to them if we'll keep everything going, we'll make sure it all keeps going. And finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about is the newspapers. This is where the big story arc of it all comes in. It basically says how the story goes or how it all builds up. First things first is the Haunted Woods. I want to talk about the Haunted Woods first. The Haunted Woods is literally the woods built around the house in the game. As haunted woods, I think is where the original idea for the haunted suits where they came from. The idea of a haunted woods, or woods they lived by that was haunted, that was said to be haunted with paranormal sightings, was one of the things that got Scott in the mood to create a horror game based on spirits taking over animatronic bodies, attacking a person who is stuck there with them, not able to leave. Next thing to know is what is the FNAF growing papers mean. So first of all is the papers saying that, he's growing, FNAF is everywhere. Saying that how Scott succeeded, but everybody needs it now. A lot of kids and people's lives kind of depend on knowing how the game goes and what happens from that point on. Everything that they need is in FNAF. Keeping Scott going, it's showing how the audience formed, trying to keep him going forever. And now is the final thing I want to talk about. The phrase, "come back to us, Nick." It's showing that how Nick feels, showing that how if the audience, still is a theory, that the audience will go to Nick if Scott Cawthon ever stops. If Scott Cawthon stops, they can go to him. "Come back to us, Nick" is saying how when Scott goes, they want him to come back and keep it going. And that's why Nick commits suicide. He knows that to finally end it all, he has to kill himself. That's what the paper man found dead in his house means. Scott Cawthon didn't die, that was Nick, since it says recently reconstructed house. It was Nick who committed suicide in that house, from two things of evidence. The fact that Tobias was calling the owner of the phone, and the fact that the paper says recently reconstructed house. That is Nick, not Scott. And now for the final part of the video, explaining what this all means. Nickson created this game as a symbolic way to show the mental state of Scott Cawthon. The animatronics are symbolically everybody asking him for more, everybody keeping him in a mentally unstable state. How they're keeping Scott Cawthon in one place that he doesn't want to be in anymore, and showing that how as long as he's there and he doesn't end it, everybody can stay satisfied, keep making sure that the series never ends and that it's never forgotten. As for the ending, with Scott dying, it shows how the audience succeeded in doing that, keeping him in a mental state forever, ever, of saying that he cannot end it or else everybody will blow up, and make sure he doesn't feel mentally stable anymore, causing Scott to keep going and going and going on about this. Keeping FNAF alive is what they want forever. They don't want it to end at all. They want it to keep going. And if they can't keep it going, they at least want the most understandable ending they could possibly have, which in Scott's eyes is extremely difficult just to give it away, because he's enjoyed hiding them for people like the game theorists and other people to find out for themselves. And Nickson created this game saying how Scott and his family, well, if he has one, I still don't know this stuff, it's a theory, are keeping anyway, so saying how Scott and his family are mentally affected by this, by people, by the audience, by people around them, by people they communicate with every day, and how it's keeping them mentally unstable and in a state of Five Nights at Freddy's is taking them over. And the ending symbolically means of Scott trying to pull the plug. Everybody in the family pulls the plug on is a symbolic way of FNAF, of the plug of FNAF being pulled. That Scott is trying to keep it ended forever. if the game theorist is watching this, which I will hopefully give him this, saying what this means, I hope he sees this and I hope he agrees with me. If you have anything to say or edit about this, please do. But remember, this is all a theory. I could be completely wrong. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.